additional information we might need. Thank you very much, Jack. So I'll push forward and let you guys know also, if you've got any questions along the way, we use the chat function. So you're welcome to put your hand up and we'll try and answer questions as we go. There is allocated question and answer time for each speaker. And any questions that don't get answered, we'll endeavour to answer those later on for you. So I'll go ahead and introduce our facilitators for today. We're lucky enough to be joined by Melanie Davies, who's Biodiversity and Sustainability Project Officer for WA Landcare, not Landcare, WA Local Government Association, or WALGA. She's sent through an amazing bio, so I'm just going to read that out for you today. Melanie's worked in the Environment Policy Team at WALGA for 7 years and has over 20 years experience in sustainability and environmental management. She has held project, policy and research positions in local government, state government and the mining industry, both in WA and Victoria. Melanie's childhood involved many visits with her family to farms in WA's Wheatbelt region with Trillion Trees Australia, who I'm sure we all know, formerly Men of the Trees, where volunteers worked alongside farmers to plant trees and address land degradation. Her love of nature and caring for the environment is a lifelong passion, with Melanie a founding member or active contributor to 3 bush care or Friends of groups in her local area along Perth's northern coastline. So if you want to put your hand up, Melanie, and say hi.
Hey, everyone.
We're also going to hear from the lovely Hannah Gulliver, Rewild Perth Program Manager with Perth NRM. And Hannah was telling me this morning that she had her hands in the dirt pretty early on in her life. This connection to nature saw her complete a degree in environmental management and marine science, and through various roles in research, environmental project management and education, Hannah discovered that her passion is to connect people with nature, and she's thrilled to manage the Rewild Perth program through Perth NRM, where she connects community with their local environment and inspires and enables action to support biodiversity in gardens and forgotten spaces across the urban landscape. I love that little bio. Thanks so much, Hannah. If you could pop your hand up and say hi. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Melanie, who's going to be presenting first to us today. Thanks so much, Melanie.
Thanks, Casey. I'm just going to share my screen and let me know when you can see it.
Perfect, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you firstly for the opportunity to speak today about the support that WALGA offers to local governments to create urban forests and green spaces. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land. We cover the whole state with our organisation at WALGA, and I'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging of the various groups across our lands in WA. I'm here on Wajak Noongar Budja, and we're entering the first spring, which is the Jilba season, and it was lovely to see. I actually rode to work this morning. There's so many wattles out in those yellow colours that signal the arrival of the Jilba. So in terms of, if you don't know too much about WALGA, we're the WA Local Government Association and we're the united voice for local governments in WA. We represent 139 local governments across the state. These local governments are represented by over 1,000 elected members that are involved in strategic direction and decision-making on council matters. The local government size is quite various. Across the state, we have small councils like Peppermint Grove, 1.5 kilometres squared, up to the Shire of East Pilbara, which are some of the shires are over 300,000 square kilometres. Our regional local governments can have staff of only 10 members, so they cover a wide variety of portfolios for a certain staff member, whereas our larger local governments can have up to 1,000 employees. And the communities we serve have populations of 100 people up to over 200,000. So in terms of the WALGA environment portfolio, our policy team focuses on 5 key areas. These are urban forests, climate change, biosecurity, biodiversity and water. So today I've been asked to talk about our work in the urban forest and greening space, and I'm going to talk through a couple of the projects listed there and give you some examples of our priorities that we work on. So firstly, trees and livability. So the loss of urban canopy is a key challenge for local government. We know that the shading and cooling provided by trees offers many benefits, and these include reduction of the urban heat island effect, also improved neighbourhood livability, better air quality, obviously the biodiversity benefits, and also mental health and wellbeing. Perth has the lowest canopy cover of all major cities in Australia, and tree canopy cover is often lowest in our socially disadvantaged areas. Poor planning and development is leading to a loss of significant trees on private property and verges, and our local governments have noted that up to 85% of tree loss is occurring on private land, as is demonstrated by the aerial imagery that we collect. Local governments are playing a lead role to help address the loss of this urban canopy, developing urban forest strategies, implementing significant tree registers and tree bonds, but we need to do more work in this area. This is a picture of our property in Sorrento where I live and my daughter Anna. So we're lucky to have some mature tuart trees on our property. And I think some of the work we do is to try and increase that community value and understanding of trees and the role that they play. So the Urban Forest Working Group is one of the key initiatives that we have worked on with the sector, and it drives a lot of our work with input from the local governments. So this group was established in 2019, and it aims to build the capacity of the sector to take collective action on agreed priorities. The working group continues to grow, which indicates its importance to the sector. We currently have 35 local governments that participate in this group and over 90 officers. The group is working on 4 key projects at the moment. We're looking at better ways of tree retention through the planning system, improving tree stock quality that's planted in local government areas, assisting elected members and senior executives with information to improve decision making, and also in targeting that community education and engagement to encourage behaviour change. In terms of tree protection and retention, WA has the weakest protections for trees on private land in any state. We know in South Australia that trees on private property need approval for anything other than pruning, whereas in WA, trees can be removed at the property owner's discretion. In the absence of strong state planning provisions for tree retention, we're seeing a patchwork of approaches being used by local government. Local governments might apply tree protection orders, which uses a valuation system to try and disincentivise tree removal, or some are using significant tree registers, which note significant trees in the area based on their environmental, social, or cultural values or historical significance, and then have a register of these trees. Generally, trees on private property will require the landholder's approval before they're added to the significant tree register. The local planning schemes and policies can then require planting of replacement trees if a significant tree is removed. One thing we're working on is to enable stronger development controls through the Planning and Development Act. So we're seeking legal advice on whether removal of a tree constitutes the definition of development, and therefore tree removal would be assessed as per the current development approval process in local government. We're also seeking or advocating for better urban planning. So the state government has made some regulatory changes in this area in recent years, with the residential design codes for for apartments and also single dwelling lots. So for single dwelling lots, there needs to be 1 tree per property area, and for apartment lots, it's based on the lot size. So there's 2 trees per 700 metres squared, and then 4 trees if you're developing a lot area over 1,000 metres squared. But of course, this doesn't help us retain the existing trees. And you can see beautiful big trees like this one take many, many years to grow and can't be replaced overnight by replanting. Another thing that we're doing is advocating for deeper soil zones, minimum tree requirements that are more stringent, increased minimum building setbacks to actually allow room for trees to be planted. Another issue we have in many of our development areas is very narrow road reserves where there's not actually much room to plant trees in the public realm. And also there's that competition with the underground utility services such as your water and electricity supply. So having better suburb and developments, the overall planning and design of those will help with this issue. The state government is undertaking a livable neighbourhoods review, and there's the opportunity to have some better practices here. The second project that the working group is addressing is tree quality. So many nurseries, local governments are finding hold on to stock for significant amounts of time, and we're delivered with root-bound stock. The other issue is the aftercare in the establishment phase of a tree, which can be 2 to 3 years. So making sure that we have appropriate programs in place there to support tree survival after planting. So the working group is developing a framework to better support officers in ensuring that they have quality stock that is purchased from nurseries. We're working with leading nurseries in this space, which are being very collaborative and are on board with the process. And then also implementing best practice planting techniques and maintenance programs. So the framework is currently being trialled by the City of Belmont. And once it's confirmed and rolled out across local government, there will be training sessions to help build that capacity in the sector. Another area that we've been focusing on is improved decision making. Elected members in local governments come from many walks of life, and we're aiming to upskill them in the issues that are being faced with urban canopy loss. At the conference that we held, our WALGA Urban Canopy conference in February this year, we held an elected member masterclass where we talked about the key messages that we would like elected members to understand when they're making decisions on council matters. So there's the importance of having water sensitive urban design to support planted trees in the environment, having site selection or species selection, sorry, that is site and locality specific, and also ensuring that elected members are aware of the mechanisms available through the planning framework to assist with tree retention. I just touched on our Urban Forest Conference, but it's been highly successful since we organised the first one in 2021. This year, we had over 330 people attend from various different sectors. It reinforces the importance of collaboration between state government, local government and the private sector to improve our urban forest outcomes. We were also able to engage ministers and issues at the conference, which has been very successful at getting this on the state's agenda. The WA Tree Festival has been organised by our working group. And local governments have led this with the first festival held in 2022 and the second one this year. We've had really great community attendance at the festivals. Many local governments and other organisations host events, and it's collectively advertised under the one promotional banner. And again, it's getting that community awareness about the value of trees, trying to encourage that behaviour change so that people that have properties with significant trees are seeing them as an asset rather than something to remove. And many attendees provided really good feedback about the events. We also develop a lot of policy on behalf of the sector where we have a collective stance on a certain issue and we can do advocacy under this. The Urban Forest Advocacy Policy was just endorsed in July this year, and it recommends that the state government has a lead agency with oversight of urban forest initiatives, that we have a statewide urban forest strategy that includes minimum canopy targets, that we develop better mechanisms for tree protection and growth of our urban forests, and that we are focusing on community awareness and behaviour change. We've also asked for, I guess, co-funding to help meet that investment that local governments are providing for tree planting in public realms, where they're focusing on trying to address issues of urban heat and supporting local biodiversity. An example of a grant program that we ran to support local governments was the Urban Canopy Grant Program. This was funded by the Department of Water and delivered through the Water Corporation by WALGA. The program provided $750,000 to support the Perth and Peel region local governments to plant trees in high urban heat areas. So we had 18 local governments that were successful grant recipients. Over the program timeframe, they planted over 4,000 trees in extreme heat areas, so 5 to 7 degrees above our baseline areas, which are revegetated bushland or natural areas. The targeted areas were also very low canopy, so we were able to improve future canopy cover here. And the canopy increase projected over the next 10 years is over 18 hectares. We had more than 50% of trees were medium or large size species so that we can maximise canopy gain. And in addition to that, many local governments focused on using native species, ones that were providing food sources for endangered species like the black cockatoos, so banksias and hakeas, and wandus that can provide hollow forming trees in the future. And also planting in identified greenways that are linking remnant areas of vegetation so that we get that species movement across the landscape. I'll just give you a couple of examples of projects that were funded. The City of South Perth was funded to plant trees within areas that are close to schools, sporting clubs and recreational reserves. So this site that we're on here, I met with John, who's the nursery supervisor, and Paul Reid to discuss their planting program. And we're actually in a site that is right next to a large area that had been completely clear felled for a high density apartment block. So that across their city, they're aiming to offset this kind of development through the planting of quite dense canopy in their parks and reserves. They also are one of the only nurseries in the Perth metro area that grow their own tree stock at their own nursery. And it's great to be able to see that they can collect local seed and propagate native species that are quite hard to obtain from commercial growers. The town of East Fremantle had a project where they were planting around community facilities such as basketball courts, exercise equipment, playgrounds and walking paths. Many of their trees were in quite bare areas along the river. They did have a lot of community opposition to this planting program and undertook a comprehensive engagement process where they developed digital view corridors so that projected what their outlook would look like over time. When the trees are growing bigger. They had messaging from the Cancer Council of WA to have that authority and I guess important message of having shade to reduce the incidence of skin cancer. They ran drop-in information sessions and held one-on-one meetings with their residents. And overall, they achieved community support for the planting and held a number of community planting days, as you can see in this photo here. To provide, I guess, a disincentive to any tree vandalism, the council also endorsed a recommendation for a 3:1 replacement ratio for any trees that were poisoned or killed during this project. The last example that I'll provide is for the city of Gosnells. You can see on the map here that the red areas in their suburb are the aerial imagery of very high or heat index areas. And on this top image, you can see the streets that they were planting under the program. They're located in a growth corridor area where they've got a lot of high density housing going in this area to support the young families that are moving through. And they have a large precinct here that has retail, shopping, commercial. So with the development of these shady local streets, they're hoping that people can easily and comfortably walk to this area rather than potentially taking the car because it's just such a hot, barren streetscape. They also planted some of their green corridors to link with remnant areas of bushland and also in an existing wildlife tunnel that they had in the area. In terms of learnings from the grant program, It was a great vehicle to have the conversations about the importance of trees to address urban heat, as well as the other benefits they provide. So our local governments completed a lot of publicity as they were implementing the program. There were radio interviews, social media posts. We did a video series. So yeah, really good to get the message out. The program also enabled new partnerships to form. So local governments that planted around schools held, I guess, workshops with the kids to talk about the tree planting objectives, and also involve the children in the monitoring of the trees afterwards and care for them. They were also able to strengthen existing partnerships. So, for instance, the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale worked with their Landcare group on the tree plantings. We would suggest smaller tree stock for future grant programs, just because it has better establishment and plant quality. The Urban Heat Index mapping was a really good tool to help prioritise sites for planting. We had a lot of interest in the program from regional councils, and we'd suggest that that the whole state should be included in future grant programs. Towns in regional areas also need to have the urban canopy. And from this program, and also our, I guess, advocacy work that came out of the conference we ran this year, we were successful in securing $3.75 million for an expanded urban greening grant program for local government. So the details of that are currently being developed. Cassie, just let me know when I've got 5 minutes left. I don't want to go over time. The State NRM Community Stewardship Grant Program is another one that we applied for to help local governments with their biodiversity management. We received $400,000 to provide to local governments in the Southwest ecoregion. So throughout the rest of this year and next year, we'll be funding ecological assessments of roadside reserves and also bushland reserves, and helping local governments develop local biodiversity strategies and policies. The aim of this project is to help the sector consider, or firstly determine what significant areas of biodiversity they have if this hasn't been well documented, and then use this information to help with decision-making processes. WALGA ran the Perth Biodiversity Project from 2009 to 2014, and we have a lot of methodology or natural area assessment that is now being updated and applied to this project. And we also have a template biodiversity strategy for local governments to use. We received some great applications from local governments. So the Shire of 2J and Victoria Plains are going to employ together a joint officer to develop a local biodiversity strategy for each shire. And they hope that after this project, they'll have demonstrated the value of that resource and enable the ongoing employment of that officer. So kind of a good study on how to resource some of these smaller regional local governments. The Shire of Esperance will work with their native title Aboriginal Corporation to assess their Kwongan shrublands and prioritise investment in their management. And the Shire of Northam will be developing a local planning policy for tree retention. This is round 1 of the program. The successful grant recipients will be announced shortly, and round 2 will open within the next couple of months. So the program requires partnerships with local community groups, and it's a great one to be aware of, to perhaps, let your local government know about, and that you'd be willing to work on some of these projects together. Just heading towards the end of the presentation now. One of the other things we've helped local governments with is roadside vegetation management, and we've held annual workshops across the state since 2019. Local governments have a duty of care to provide safe roads according to the Austroad recommendations, but we also really need to ensure that conservation values on roadsides are also adequately protected. We know that in many areas, including, well, particularly the wheat belt, some of these roadside communities are the last patches of these community types that exist. So the aim of these workshops are to provide local governments with information and training to help better protect that vegetation, whilst also ensuring that road safety and transport efficiency is met. So we have the state government come and talk about the regulatory approvals process for vegetation clearing, the importance of avoidance and mitigation. And then we bring in quite a few local government examples of how they're minimising environmental impacts in practice. So an example, we've got Manjimup workshop coming up next month. The Shire of Jerramungup will come and talk about their internal works processes to minimise environmental impacts. So they base their roadworks program based on a risk assessment of the risk to drivers plus the conservation significance. And in some cases, they can reduce the footprint of roads to avoid clearing. They've also trained all their roadworks crews in a conservation and land management certificate at TAFE, so they have a better understanding of the environmental values of the reserves. Even simple things like changing the timing of pruning so that you're avoiding the nesting season of birds in the region. So yeah, lots of great things to share with other local governments. We've also partnered with Perth NRM to host a workshop on how local governments can better support their natural area volunteer groups. So the input of these volunteers is invaluable to local government in terms of the hours and the ongoing assistance they can provide. And we were looking at ways that local governments can better provide support. We discussed the need for mentoring, providing expert advice and skills training to volunteers, helping these volunteer groups in your local government area better connect with each other and share knowledge. And also celebrating successes was important to local groups as well. We found that volunteer groups are seeking guidance on legal and insurance requirements with the new workplace health and safety legislation. They need support with their Aboriginal engagement processes and also ways to engage new volunteers and succession plan within their groups. Another key thing was local government investment to support their groups. So some local governments offer or fund volunteer coordinator positions, such as the Armidale Gosnells Landcare group, whereas others like the City of Stirling will provide grant programs each year up to the value of $6,000 to support friends groups activities. These are some of the links that you can look at for further information on the projects I've mentioned today. And thank you very much.
That was great, Melanie. Thank you so much. Are we able to get a copy of your presentation to send out to participants today? That would be awesome. There's a couple of questions in the chat, if you don't mind, that are directly asked of you. Wildfire Society of WA. Melanie, what's being done to get local governments to plant local native species in street tree plantings and in parks and reserves? I see many plantings that include eastern states and overseas species that have issues of weediness and leaf loss that result in nutrient addition and stormwater, which results in elevated nutrients in the waterways.
Yeah. In terms of street tree selection, local governments will generally consider a number of factors based on the needs of the site. So obviously supporting our local biodiversity with local native species is really important. For some local governments, there'll be a key focus on climate change and how we can better prepare for the future high temperatures we're going to be experiencing. There's also the issue of an increasing number of plant pests and diseases. So making sure that we're trying to choose species that are resistant to things like polyphagous shot hole borer. And then in some cases in highly urbanised environments, there is research that shows that non-Indigenous, non-native species can actually perform better with their canopy development in those areas. So there's a whole suite of considerations, but I would say over time, because I know what you mean, historically there has been, I guess, more of in some streetscapes, more eastern states or even more European kind of species.
And
we're kind of trying to move to more appropriate selection.
Tracy Muir has said it would be great to extend the Canopy grant program to regional LGs, absolutely required.
Yeah, agree. And we're hoping that with that $3.75 million that has just been announced for the extended program, that regional areas will be included. We'll be advocating for that.
Awesome. And Louise has said, what was the resulting ongoing community care and involvement after the projects had been completed? Have these projects been surveyed after plantings to see if their opinion towards trees has improved?
In terms of the community opinion towards trees, we haven't done any work on that at WALGA, but I know that a lot of local government urban forest strategies include actions around community engagement, community I guess sentiment towards trees. That's a huge area to address. So you can kind of have the a stick approach with the regulations under the state planning system, but there's also that inherent kind of value of trees. So we come from both angles, really.
Absolutely. They're so important to our health and well-being as well. Like just being around them makes you feel better. Just coming directly from the jungle, I've still got that little glow.
Yeah, definitely.
That was awesome, Melanie. Did you have anything to add, Jack?
Look, there's so much of that I wasn't aware of, Melanie, the work that's going on, and it's really heartening to hear that there's so many different prongs to your approach to engage and educate and really lock into that value and amenity that is needed in urban areas. There's a couple of points I'd like to talk to at the end about where we can work together, because we're having this ongoing conversation about seed quality for our member groups as well. And I'm sure there's some overlap there, and also
definitely
about best planting practice, so that if we're going to be having training sessions about these things, then if we can open them up and really get that best available practice out there, our trees have best chance of success. So wonderful stuff. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Just a lovely positive comment from Paul saying, thank you for the insights. From a consultant's perspective, it is important to understand these initiatives going forward. So that's lovely. I might hand the floor over to Hannah now to discuss Rewild Perth.
Wonderful. Thank you. So also sharing my screen. That's come up. Awesome. So thank you so much for having me along. I've attended a lot of the Landcare check-ins, but not presented yet. So it's really nice, and it's a wonderful community. So thanks for having me along. I am from Rewild Perth, a program at Perth NRM that is supported by Lottery West at the moment. And I'm coming to you from Wajak Noongar Budja from Perth. And our region covers a few different areas, and I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians and elders, and also to my mum, because she's the one that got me into connecting with nature and getting those hands dirty. So this is my mum in her garden in Biodiversity on Pinjarab land, and that is just a beautiful area where she has used local natives. And you see the birds, the bees, the kangaroos hopping through. And it's just an amazing feeling that you get from having these interactions and having this canopy cover around you as well. In terms of rewilding, what Rewild Perth is all about, it's a global phenomenon at the moment. So everyone's using the term rewild. And it has a few different contexts. So we come at it as it's reconnecting isolated areas of wild nature and creating wildlife corridors to enhance biodiversity and support wildlife. And as a NRM group, the traditional approaches are normally around looking at those public natural areas and supporting and collaborating with the local governments, land managers and community to support those areas, those parks, those bushlands, those reserves. which are vital. And we need those larger patches and those areas where you really can have some big trees, some canopy coming through. But there is a huge opportunity in the private space that's really hard to get into. And some of the things Mel talked about demonstrated how those publicly owned spaces, the gardens, the private properties, there are some issues in having community value trees in the space that they are the land manager, the caretaker of, and then also going through the different policies and requirements, and working with their local government to be able to value and not take away the trees, and also to plant new trees and make sure they're dialing before they dig, and getting them in the right spaces, local trees and local spaces as well. So that's where we're looking at bringing nature home with Rewild Perth. And our plan is that we want to connect this map of Perth, and it is a Perth-based program at the moment. But what we've created, and what I'll go into, is that we've created a tool for community and land managers to create tailored garden action plans with highly accessible and filterable plant, animal, and habitat structure resources, so people can take action in their own gardens or outdoor spaces. And we start to see the connection, a ecologically permeable city. And it's using people and urban living as part of that strategy. You see urbanization as part of the problem, but it can be part of the solution as well when we increase the awareness in people so that they value our local wildlife and biodiversity, and can take action in their own spaces. And we know that every garden does matter. It doesn't matter if you've got a small balcony, there's still things that you can do. And if just 1% of Perth's more than 32,000 kilometres of urban road verges and more than 810,000 private dwellings made a change, so if we converted lawns on the verge to habitat gardens and installed a Banksia bird bath or native bee hotel in just 1% of the gardens in Perth, that's adding an additional 100 hectares and 8,100 new points of habitat. So there can be a huge change by making just a small percentage of the population. So think what we could do if we got half of the people just valuing our canopy and our biodiversity. How are we doing this? Well, Rewild as a program, we've got a tool. So we're enabling through a community resource that I'm going to explain, people being able to make the right choices for their garden, or the best choices for biodiversity. We're engaging and inspiring people with workshops and events, newsletters, social media, inspiration from peers, showing what you can do in gardens. So getting gardeners around Perth to show what they've done in their spaces. We're creating a demonstration garden so that people can come on through and see different styles of garden that use local native species and that incorporate a lot of different habitat values and novel habitat values, which are things not naturally used by animals. So it can be anything from a bird bath to a nest box to an insect hotel. And we're collaborating. So we've got a huge list of delivery partners for this pilot year, and then we're reaching out for more collaborations, and we're running a think tank, which is a collective of organisations in Perth that have the same vision to see a connected and ecologically thriving city, so that we're planning a pathway that's going to see success and where we're having collective impact. Because we know that together, through inspiring with the array of beautiful biodiversity of flora that we have, we will support a wide array of our wildlife in our cities. So the tool that we've created over the past 5 years is an online resource. It's a website, so you can access it on a desktop or mobile, and it's resources that are tailored from the ground up, so matching to soil type. So by popping your suburb into this resource filters, it matches you to the dominant soil type for your suburb, which links you to the suitable species that are going to thrive in your soil type. It tells you the habitat values that these will enable you to create and provide, that as well as it being dry and wet habitat, food and water, it's also behaviour change. So we link to connecting people to their local community groups and local environmental areas, as well as responsible pet ownership and actions like that that make a huge impact. And then it also links you to the wildlife you will support. So we've got a wide range of animal profiles, which when you scroll through them, you've got a list of all of the structures and the plants that are associated with supporting that species. These are just examples of what it looks like. So we've got resources for plants, animals, and habitat structures. It's for everyone. So as I mentioned before, it doesn't matter if you have a balcony or a large property, there's still options for you to take action. And we've made sure that in the process of creating a tailored action plan for your garden, it gives those options so that a balcony has your potted wildflowers, adding water sources, vertical garden soon coming, and large properties will have those large trees and demonstrate just how many large, medium and small trees might fit on a property of that scale. And in talking about urban forests, it's a tool that can support urban forest and biodiversity strategies and greening plans, because we've got a program to inspire, to create that value around trees and canopy, and a community tool to enable the protection of trees and promote an increase in urban tree canopy. I looked at the WALGA's Urban Forestry Survey Summary from 2017, and in there it said, and as Mel said as well, there is a lack of awareness of the role and value of trees in the urban environment, and a lack of community support for street trees. And I think that extends to trees in their private spaces as well, their outdoor spaces. So if that's something, like I said, we can inspire that value and also provide the tool that makes it really easy for people to go, oh, this is the list of trees that would do, they're from my area. This is how big they grow. These are the flowering times and colour. I'll choose that one. So it's a tool that can support community and also be a tool that community groups and land managers can use, local governments can use. And we do map our the profile. So it's a completely free community resource. By making an account, by creating your action plan, where you can assess your garden as well. So it's mapping what people are actually doing in their gardens. You get a spot on the map, and we start to see how that is tracking across the landscape, and can use that to identify where we should target next, alongside using the mapping done by WALGA of trees and heat island effects as well. So we can map to priority areas, and we can inspire people to design their gardens like a forest, so that we can have examples of how to involve and increase canopy within a garden and have a really beautiful space. We've been hosting lots of workshops and collaborations, and we've had a lot of really great feedback about what this program and this online tool can give. And we've done a few with Josh Byrne from Gardening Australia and environmental scientist. And he said, I really do think it is one of the most generous and useful programs that have been developed for the Perth gardening community. It is the kind of thing that goes from concept to practical detail. And that's what we were aiming for. It's the practical step, trying to make it as easy as possible for someone to make the right choices for supporting biodiversity in their local areas. As I mentioned, we're collaborating with lots of like-minded groups around Perth so that we are having a strategy and going forward a pathway to have meaningful impact and support biodiversity. And we're collaborating with all of these groups. We formed a think tank to guide that strategy moving forwards. And we're looking forward to a long-term program that's going to support biodiversity in Perth, community, and then expand. It's got the option to, it's a framework that can be used to expand outwards to other regions. And we are talking to different regions about that as well in the long term. So thank you very much for listening to me talking about Bring Nature Home. Get in contact and check out Rewild Perth.
Fantastic, Hannah. I really enjoyed hearing about this amazing program. What I like the most about it is that it's scalable and it's inclusive, you know. So it's realistic for anybody living in that urban space, no matter how big or small your garden is. And I also love, as Perth NRM do so well, is that really nice collaborative approach and making sure that you're working with WALGA and other organisations. I did have a question. Are you working with any major nurseries at all to kind of bring them on?
Yeah, so that is the plan. We've been talking with the Nursery and Gardens Industry Association, NAGAWA, so that we do it in a way that's correct, that we're working with all of the nurseries at once. But yeah, we're forming some really good relationships with all of the native nurseries around Perth. That's a really big thing that we'd like to move into.
Fantastic. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Hannah, with these garden designs and strategies, is this based on soil types and landscapes? Just wondering if it could be used in different areas such as Albany. And you kind of touched on that you're looking at expansion into other regions. Yeah,
absolutely. So it did take quite a long time to set up the links, and because everything has to be, each resource, the plants, the animals, the soil type structures are all linked together like an ecosystem. So absolutely it can be a framework that's copy and pasted. It's something that we wanted to get right in Perth and trial different ways of doing it, make sure it all works for everyone. And then, yeah, absolutely can be expanded.
Jennifer Pearson was saying that Greening Australia, and I don't want to put you on the spot there, Ross, had a similar website called Grow Us a Home. It was very thorough, so wondered where that ended up.
When that was, I had a quick look. News to me. I've been with Greening Australia for 2.5. It has never been mentioned to me. I did find there's an 11-page document around that resource that's still available on Greening Australia's website, but it looks as though there isn't still an active website around that. And the information that's in that document can't hold a candle to Rewild at the moment. So I think, yeah, I think what Hannah's got going on at the moment is far eclipses anything that we've got in that space at the moment.
Can I jump in, people, just before we move along and ask everyone to turn their cameras on? I want to do a quick print screen for our reporting to our funding bodies. So if you're able to do that, I would really appreciate it. We've got a few people there who may not. Oh, there we go. There's Knack. Come on. Paganoni Swamp and Oyster Harbour Catchment Group. Putting you on the spot. Ah, gorgeous. Nice to see you, Leonie. Anyone else there from Oyster Harbour? And we can all give Ready? Oh, nearly? No, not coming? All right. Can we all have a thumbs up for the great stuff we've learned today about what's going on in this space? Thank you very much. I'm going to do one more for good luck. Cheers. Thanks, Case.
Thanks for the reminder, Jack. Does anyone else have any questions they want to throw to Hannah?
Just to add to Ross and the Greening Australia, we have looked into lots of similar programs to learn from them and make sure we're not doubling up and they're working with people. And there's a few different programs that Greening Australia did an awesome Our Parks, Our Place program. So I'm connecting with them to see the outcomes of that and work together. And there are a few different programs that across Australia. There's a very an amazing one mostly on the East Coast called Gardens for Wildlife. And it's more of a volunteer run program where volunteers will visit people's gardens and create a report that person can take their actions away. So it's very much, it's got a big social impact as well. And it's something that we're going to hopefully run some trials with as well, so that we can have more of that social and create a network in Perth as well.
Fantastic, Hannah. Does anyone else have any questions? Mary?
Oh, can I make a suggestion? It would be really great to add the Wildfire Society to the think tank of groups. Brett Luddy, the president, is there on this group. Is here. Yeah, because there's a huge amount of expertise about plants within the Wildfire Society.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was something that we were careful not to have too many people in the room, but we have special focus groups that are going to where we look into sort of biodiversity and sort of horticulture and botany versus ecology, and create groups around those as well, where we do get the information and work with people in those ways as well. But yeah, absolutely. I will look at our list, and if anyone does have people to connect me with or advice, feedback, send it on through. Absolutely. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll jump in, Case, and just ask Hannah, with the experience you've had in the program, and in response to Jennifer's question from Albany, and she's had to leave, what do you think of the portability of the model? Like, would this be something that Geraldton, Bunbury, Albany, Broome, everybody can have their version of?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that the tool, like the website, we can expand that, and then we will have a heap of resources where other groups, whether that's NRM or other, can run their own programs in different regions. Absolutely.
Sorry, Jenny, you are still there. Did you want to add to your question? Sorry, you're muted. Are you muted? Yeah.
I'm not. Maybe on your end.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. We were just wondering, because we're putting in a grant for the threatened species grant that's coming up, and that's going to be on possums, western ringtail possums, and we were just hoping to see how long it would be before we got the Albany sort of region plants up there, because we were thinking, should we collaborate with you guys and chat and see with it, because we've got so many types in this area, it's crazy. So how can we work with you to make this something that we could possibly use in our grant application?
So I would say we're still quite a few years away from expanding it.
Okay.
There's a lot of a lot of species of plants that we'd have to create profiles for. We're adding an extra 70 species just this year for the Perth region. And so it's something that we would need to work with lots of people, and we need to have a financially sustainable program, having a website that needs to have annual reviews because you need the information to be correct. That's the thing that we need to set up first, to have that core support framework for the website, and then do that big workload of expanding and having correct soil types and plants and animals and matching each of those and incorporating research around species and conservation. So yeah, absolutely, but a few years away. Yeah, and we'll definitely be reaching out as well as we do it. So I think in terms of the Perth based, we're probably looking at least another 2 years and then expanding. So yeah, but it's a resource at the same time, in the same way. It's something that you can still filter through the resources and look at the different species and what they require and different animal species, and it's still a resource for you no matter where you live.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Great. You've got really good bones there already, so I can only imagine how incredible this program will be in a couple of years, and having the ability to transfer to different would be amazing. If anyone else have any final questions, thoughts? I'm not on island time anymore. I'm trying to be really good with wrapping up really quickly. Thank you so much.
I think sorry. I just want to say I think there's a tremendous opportunity there for collaboration. There's a great program running with our equivalent organisation in the ACT around mental health and wellbeing.
Yes.
And it's going so well, they've actually got some global partners interested in investing. And one of the points that Melanie made before I really took on board, because I'm based in Bunbury and I've been in the southwest for a long, long time, and I know the demographics really well, and particularly with my work in remote and regional Australia with First Nations people. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity there for some sort of mental well-being, sort of social, environmental partnerships to look at how we work with communities that we know, don't necessarily value trees. We know there's some destruction of trees. It's great to see that there's this 3-to-1 ratio of replacement that councils are recognising. You've got to keep going back and infilling, and eventually, the trees will get recognised and valued. But it's really exciting to see what's going on and to look at how WALN might be able to work with a few different stakeholders to pull things together that can get, it's so shocking. It is absolutely shocking to hear that Western Australia has the lowest canopy coverage when we've just got such amazing diversity of plants. We've got beautiful shade trees that can be used, and that we've got to this point where we're ranking so low in the country. So looking forward to doing whatever we can to help reverse that trend along with what you people are doing that is so good.
Thanks, Jack. Just overall, the chat's been super positive today, just for the presenters. Lots and lots of big love going out to you guys. So thank you for joining us. I just wanted to let you guys know that in September, we've got a couple of events that might interest you. On Tuesday, the 19th of September, we've got a Landcare Build Skills session on landscape weed control using the Arum Lily Blitz from NatureCons as a case study, and that'll be presented by Genevieve Hanran-Smith. And then also I'm going to be running a Why Join WALN Landcare checks in, and it's for members, but it is also for non-members to come in and have a chat to us about the benefits of being part of our community, and also for any WALN members that have got little lurking questions that they might want to ask. We'll also have someone joining us from our insurance scheme to talk about how WALN members can be part of that and save some cash. And that will be on Tuesday, that's September 12th. So thank you so much to everyone for joining in today, and we hope to see your smiling faces next month.
Wonderful. Can I just add one more event?
Yes.
I'm hosting, well, alongside NatureLink Perth and BirdLife Australia. We've got a community festival at Bulla Catagen at Murdoch Uni. It's got 22 stalls, activities for adults, kids. Josh Byrne is presenting, Simon Cherryman's coming along with workshops around nest boxes. We've got bite-sized science. So share the event. I just put a link to it in the chat.
Oh, great.
But yeah, we'd love to have lots of people there.
I will send that through when I send through a recap to everyone as well, Hannah.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey.
Okay. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good afternoon.
Stay on if you don't mind, Kate.
Sure.